Welcome to part 3 of the Age of Jackson. Now we're going to talk about General Jackson. When the War of 1812 broke out, Andrew Jackson must have been almost giddy. Here it is, the United States at war with Great Britain because he hates the British, right? He was voted to be commander of the Tennessee militia, and he was sent to fight, well, not the British, but the Native Americans in the region that were being enticed and supplied by the British, specifically the Creek Indians in Mississippi Territory. So he's going to go after these Creek Indians. In March of 1814, Andrew Jackson, with his Tennessee militia, other militia regiments, and Cherokee Indian allies, will have the Creek Indians surrounded at a place called Horseshoe Bend. Now, if you look at this strategically, this is a fantastic place for defense. You got a deep, fast-running river. I mean, the map's a little deceptive here, right? You have high ground. You got breastworks. You got a place for your the family, the village. I mean, this is a great place to defend. But you're going up against Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson convinces his Cherokee allies that I bet you guys could swim that river in the night. And they do. The Cherokee go across the river and begin setting the village on fire. Right? You have pandemonium in the village where the wives, the grandparents, the children, where they all are. It's just a matter of time before the warriors at the breastworks, at the defensive fortifications, begin to peel off to deal with that. And that's when, of course, Andrew Jackson strikes. He overruns the position at Horseshoe Bend. Over 1,000 Creek warriors will be killed, and the rest of them, many of them, will flee into Florida, where, well, Jackson will run across some of them again later. Now, it's for his toughness in places like Horseshoe Bend that Andrew Jackson is going to gain that nickname Old Hickory, right? Like an old piece of hickory, a hardwood, right? But he'll finally get his chance to take the British on themselves in January of 1815, after the war is over. The war was over with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent on December 24th, 1814. But the British had planned an attack on New Orleans, and the planned attackers never received word. Obviously, at the time, it would have been impossible for them to receive word that the war was over. Jackson knows that this attack is coming. So he's in New Orleans with his militia, with locals, including free blacks. He even recruited a French pirate named Jean Lafitte to help him defend this very strategic and important city. Okay. The British are going to attack, and Jackson is going to devastate them, right? The British are going to attack the ramparts set up by Jackson. The ladders they have will not be tall enough, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel at this point. Over 100 British soldiers will be killed in this slaughter by Jackson and his men. Right? Jackson will have only 21 casualties. He'll have 8 dead and 13 wounded. Right? But what he gets most out of this is he becomes elevated to the status of American war hero, right? It's just a matter of time before he's going to try and parlay this into something a little more lucrative. So by 1815, Jackson is now a well-known war hero from the War of 1812. Right? It's going to set the stage for him to be in position to invade Florida. What had happened here is that you had Seminole and Creek Indians that were attacking out of Florida into Georgia. Right? President Monroe knows that he needs to do something to protect his Georgian, the citizens of Georgia. Right? At the request of his Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, a future political rival, Secretary of State John Quincy Adams recommends sending Andrew Jackson to defend Georgian citizens. Now, there's already militias, a Georgia militia and a Georgia commander. Why send Jackson? Well, to be perfectly honest, John Quincy Adams has designs on taking Florida from the Spanish, and he knows that Andrew Jackson isn't just going to sit idly by in Georgia. He's going to believe that the best defense is a good offense, and he's absolutely correct. Andrew Jackson is placed in Georgia, and what does he do? He invades Florida, Spanish Florida. Think about what he's just done here. He's invaded the sovereign land, the sovereign territory of another nation without consent of the President of the United States, right? So this is an illegal invasion by a rogue general. He's taken towns like Suwanee, St. Mark's, and Pensacola. These are Spanish settlements, right? Now he's also, of course, destroying Seminole and Creek villages, right? And terrorizing them, right? But, I mean, this is so extreme that Henry Clay, who's the Speaker of the House at his time and a rival of Andrew Jackson, is actually going to ask Congress to censure Andrew Jackson, calling him an American Napoleon, right? Congress is not willing to take that step with their war hero. And Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, this is played right into his hands. Spain complains to him. But he responds to the Spanish complaint. He tells the Spanish, he says, Spain must immediately decide to either place a force in Florida, adequate at once to the protection of her territory, or cede to the United States a province of which she retains nothing but the nominal possession of, and with which, in fact, has become a post of annoyance to them. It's like, look, y'all can't protect it. You ought to give it to us. And ultimately, John Quincy Adams gets exactly what he wants. He's played his political cards perfectly.